Good morning, all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So, how was the weekend? Hope all of you had a good weekend. And how were the sessions of the last week? So, I have shared the feedback form. So, kindly provide your valuable feedback. So far, only 11 people have given their feedback. So, take it seriously and kindly provide your feedback. Uh, Satish, Satish Kanaka, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So, are you from mechanical?
Yes, sir. I'm from mechanical.
Okay, so your mail ID is Satish M.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, okay, fine. So, in the last week, we learned about what a research project is, how to start the project. So, what are the points that we need to pay attention to before starting a research project? So, what is the importance of literature? And we discussed about how the literature review should be in a report, whether it is your project work or a research project, minor project, major project, or thesis, whatever it is, there will always be a section called literature review. We discussed about that, right? So in continuation to that, today a part of it, so we are going to find out what is editor's view on a review article, right? In journals, you are going to publish articles. So that is research and review articles. So what editors say or what editors expect. So that will be one part. But however, we are going to start with project planning and management, right? So that is the most important part of today's discussion. And also, we are going to discuss briefly about what is the importance of figures, right? So it doesn't matter whether it is an experiential learning or an assignment or a project or your thesis, right? In all these, you will end up using figures, right? So what is the importance of figures, especially in technical or scientific writing? Okay, that is also we are going to discuss today. So with this preamble, let me start the presentation. Are the slides visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I mentioned, so project planning and management, so importance of figures in scientific writing, and editor's view on publishing a review article, right? Fine. So to start with, so it doesn't matter whether the project that you're going to do is a student project. You may end up doing a project in third year, one project at the end of your engineering, that is in fourth year. There might be many mini projects, there could be hobby projects, and you might be working in innovative clubs or research centers. So it doesn't matter. Whatever we are going to discuss is applicable for all the projects that you carry out, even once you start working. So it doesn't matter in which discipline you are working, what is your background or what is your branch. So it is applicable to all disciplines, all branches of study, work, research, consultancy, everything. These are general guidelines. And before you start any project, so you need to pay attention to certain things. So that is what we are going to discuss. And few general remarks are, as I told you, irrespective of the project or the phase of life, whether it is at the beginning of your career or whether you are experienced, it doesn't matter. You will end up working as a team, right? So you should know how to play well in a team. At the same time, you should be independent as well. If a task is assigned to you, a project is assigned to you, you cannot keep on asking your team leader or your manager or your boss every now and then, sir, what is this, what is that, right? So there are many things which you need to do yourselves. Of course, you can ask doubts, but those should not be very trivial. If you spend some time yourself, you should be able to find answers to most of your questions. The issue with all of us is, even when I was studying, the moment a question comes to our mind, we don't think anything, immediately we will ask either the teacher or a friend, right? We don't even bother to spend a minute on finding a solution to our own question by ourselves, right? So that you should get rid of. That is not going to help. Spend sometimes, even if it is half an hour, 1 hour, it doesn't matter. Do not be of the impression that it is waste of time. Why should I spend time on finding answer to my question? Let me ask a friend who knows that. So I will get the answer right away. Let me ask the teacher who gave me this question. So I will get the answer right away. Why should I spend or waste my time on this? No, that is a very wrong thought, very wrong attitude, right? The process, in the process of finding answer to your own questions, you learn a lot, right? It is a struggle, no doubt, especially in the beginning, right? It is a struggle. However, if you cultivate that habit, if that becomes a habit, so you can find solution to anything and everything on your own. How fast can you find the solution? That depends on you. It doesn't matter. So somebody might find an answer within a minute. Someone might need 1 hour. They end up spending 1 hour on finding the answer. But the learning during that 1 hour is invaluable, right? It is your own learning, so that stays with you forever. So be ready to spend that time, right? So that is very important. And so it doesn't matter where you are working, bosses, your boss doesn't like two words. One is no, other one is but. So it is in general. So wherever you go, right? Which are the two words? One is saying no, other one is but, right? So try to avoid this. How to do that? Everyone is busy, everyone has professional life, personal life, so it is common for everyone. However, in spite of that, so you should find time to accommodate the new assignments, right? So at any point of time, people might think that, okay, so people who work will always get more work, people who don't work will not get more work. You know what is the reason for that? As a boss, as a project manager, as a head of the company, their motive or objective is to get things done, right? So they don't keep finding people or changing people who are not really willing to do. Okay, if a person says no, they don't bother. They will find another person who does that job for them. They want smart people, efficient people who say yes, right? Okay, who is the loser now? The person who said no. Okay, he lost the opportunity. You never know how the opportunities open up. If a task is assigned to you and if you say no, next time your boss will think twice whether to assign a task to you or not. Okay, so in that process, you might lose a very good opportunity, right? The moment you hear about a new assignment or a new task assigned to you, at that very moment you think that, okay, why me? Why is this? I already have plenty of work to do. So, but again, one more task is assigned to me. So that is common. So whether it is me or my boss or you, so everyone feels that. However, in spite of that, act smart. So work smartly, plan properly, accommodate everything. It is possible if you spend time on planning, so you can execute and accommodate all the things. So that is important. Only the only limitation is your thinking, right? If you think no, it is no forever, right? If you start thinking yes, so you can find solutions to all the problems. Of course, how much time is questionable, that is different, it doesn't matter. And so see, these are the things which you may get to hear from others or not, but and at this point of time these might look trivial, and some might say, we know all those things, you tell me something new which I don't know. Okay, but if you know and if you're not following it, it's of no use, right? So one is knowing things and making use of those, right? So executing is very important in any stage. Okay, in any phase of your life or any activity that you do, so there are usually 4 phases. So there is a new assignment given to you, you need to do that. It is completely new, you don't know anything about that. It's okay, it is perfectly fine, so you need not panic. So that stage is unknowingly ineffective, and certain things is you are doing, whatever you are doing is not effective, and you don't know that you are ineffective. Someone will point out and tell you, okay, what you are doing is not right, you have to change. So you just have to start thinking about that. Only the thing that you need to think at that moment is, okay, someone has told me that this is not right, let me try to correct it. Right. So then you will enter the next phase where knowingly ineffective, you know you are not doing well, but you need to do it. You need to learn how to do it well. You are not able to do it. That is fine. That is knowingly ineffective. Your work is ineffective. You know that you are ineffective. That is okay. That is second phase. There will be a third phase. If you just continue with that phase, all the time you should try to find and figure out how to become effective. The third phase is knowingly effective. If you just keep on practicing, so you will reach a third stage where you know you are effective. Okay, and you're doing it. Then the final stage is unknowingly effective. You will reach a stage where you don't think about it, you don't bother, but you are, whatever you are doing is very effective. Okay, you are working very effectively. So these are 4 phases which anyone will face, right? So you should know this, you should have patience, you should practice, right? The only answer or only solution to any problem is hard work. You should be willing to work, right? We might have heard many things that there is no shortcut to success. We keep hearing this, we have heard this many times earlier as well. In spite of that, if we do not follow, we cannot grow. Only people who are willing to do hard work and who is willing to grab every opportunity is the one who is going to grow, right? If you are not looking for opportunities and if you do not grab that opportunity, you cannot grow, right? Fortune and opportunity will not come to you, you should go in search of it. Of course, a lot of philosophy, we might be knowing all these things, but keep this in mind and start practicing it. Until and unless you do that, it's of no use. Okay, this is general. Okay, now let's continue with the project planning and management. And whatever we discussed so far is applicable to everything that we do, be it a course that you undergo, an assignment that you do, a project that you do, or a job that you do in future, right? It is applicable to everything that we do. Okay, so the project planning and management are as a whole, project management consists of 4 stages, right? Define, plan, execute or deliver, and evaluate. Right. So as I told you, irrespective of the project, so these are the phases. So it doesn't matter in which company you work or which discipline you belong to. The phrases that they use, the terminology that they use might be slightly different, but the content remain the same. Right. Okay. And now we shall try to find out each of these in detail. Okay, let's start with define. So what is that we are discussing? The project management. It consists of 4 stages or 4 phases. One is defining the project. Second is planning. Third is execution, delivery. Fourth is evaluation. So to start with define. So there is a terminology or concept known as BOSCARD. Okay, BOSCARD. This is something that is followed in Unilever, right? The company Hindustan Unilever, whatever you have heard of. So the main company is Unilever. So it's all over the world. So it is primarily based in Netherlands and UK. So they follow this methodology known as BOSCARD. This is with respect to defining a project. Any project that they undertake, they follow this principle. And so if you go to companies like Samsung, some other company, Toyota, so all of them have their own methodologies. More or less the content remain the same, only the terminology is slightly different. So in some cases, here it is around 7 steps or 7 concepts inside this terminology. It could be 4 or 5 or 8 in other cases or other companies. Okay. However, what we need to understand here is these are the preliminary things. Okay. The content is more important. Okay. So every letter in this postcard represents something. Okay. To start with, B represents background. So in this, we are going to give the introduction to the project. Okay. So what is the present scenario? Okay, so you have to start from that broad introduction. Then you have to narrow it down to the need for that particular project. So first you start with the general background, and so what are the gaps? What makes you to start this project? Why this project? Why now? Okay, is something that you are going to address under need for this project, right? And you have to provide a big picture, a bird's eye view or an overview of the project in the background. And all these things should be done just within 4 or 5 lines, not more than that. And you know what can be the size of this postcard? So it cannot be a document of 30 pages, right? It is just one A4 size paper, right? You should accommodate all of these in just one paper. If you hand over this postcard to someone, so who is not working in that project, he should be able to get a clear picture of all the minimum details, right? So you start with the background. So all these things you need to represent just within 4 or 5 lines. Then comes the objectives. Okay, so you have to define the objectives for the project that you are going to carry out. So how should these objectives be? Smart. So it should be specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time bound. So you cannot define projects which doesn't have a time limit. Timeline is very important. Whether it is 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, doesn't matter. Plan accordingly. So all these things you should take into account while defining the objectives of that project. So next is scope. So S of the postcard stands for scope. In this section, you are supposed to identify the limits and boundaries of the project, right? So what exactly are these? Let's say let's take an example of self-sustained fuel cell. Okay, so you are planning to develop a fuel cell which is self-sustained. So for some of you, the term fuel cell itself might be new. It doesn't matter. In the due course of the internship, we are going to learn about that as well. So and I might have told you in the earlier sessions very briefly about fuel cell. It is something that can be used in place of batteries. Wherever you use batteries, it's at all those places you can use fuel cells. So you can replace batteries with fuel cells. So now, so what is the role of this fuel cell? This fuel cell consumes fuel, that is hydrogen and oxygen, and it generates electricity. So it converts the chemical energy of these fuels into electricity. So why do you use a battery to get the electricity? So you can replace that battery with a fuel cell, right? So this is a brief information about fuel cell. Now you want to make it self-sustained. That means the fuel that is required for that fuel cell is generated there itself. So where do you get that fuel from? So what is that you are going to do? So that becomes the explanation for the entire project, that is self-sustained fuel cell. So here you need to clearly specify the limits. So what are the limits here? When you say self-sustained fuel cell, there are many types of fuel cells. Okay, so it could be an alkaline fuel cell or an acid fuel cell or a polymer membrane based fuel cell or a solid oxide fuel cell. Like that, there are many variants. So high temperature, low temperature fuel cell, depending upon the application. You need to clearly specify which is the fuel cell that you are going to work on. Okay, so if you just say in general that you are going to, if you just leave it as fuel cell, so that it is not very specific. Okay, you have to make it specific. I am going to work on PEM fuel cell, so that is polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell. Okay, and also to develop a fuel cell, so means you should clearly specify the application as well. Where are you going to use this fuel cell? It is just to run your laptop or a mobile phone, or you want to generate megawatt of power. Okay, if you do not specify that, so you do not know what is the starting point and where to end, right? So if you just want to power your mobile phone, so it might turn out to be a simple fuel cell. If you want to generate megawatt of power from that fuel cell, so it's a huge project, right? So that becomes the scope of the project. Okay, so now if you specify that you want to power your mobile phone using a PEM fuel cell, so powering mobile phone is within the scope of the project, and generating a megawatt of power using fuel cell is out of the scope, right? So that is in scope and out of scope. That is what you need to specify when it comes to the scope, and indicate the departments that are involved. So when you go to a company, there might be many departments in one company, right? So especially just because there are many process engineers or chemical engineers here. So if I want to speak in the chemical engineering language, so there will be production, maintenance, R&D, so supply chain. These are the different departments. In order to execute a project, what are the departments that are involved? Okay, now how is it applicable to you now? So you want to do a project. Let's assume it's a multidisciplinary project. That means, uh, as I told you, if your project is self-sustained development of self-sustained fuel cell, so you may need chemical engineers there, so electrical engineers, so instrumentation engineers, electronic engineers, mechanical engineers, IEM. So from all the disciplines, you may need one person. Okay, so you clearly indicate which are the departments that get involved or is required for this project. So that is also part of scope. Location. Where are you going to do this project? Is it in a company, or is it in RV College of Engineering, or in your own college? Okay, that is about location. Role of each of the members. So if you specify a department, so say you say that you need a civil engineer. Okay, what is the role of that civil engineer in this project? Need to be clearly defined, indicated, right? Like that, you should do it for all the members. So next is the stakeholders. So who is going to get benefited from this project? Okay, for whom are you doing this project? Right, so that also is important. All these things should come under scope. So next point that you need to look into is constraints. Before you start the project, you should clearly know what are the constraints with respect to, it could be time, it could be money, people, or resources. Okay, say you need to form a team of 4 people. So a chemical engineer, a mechanical engineer, a civil engineer, and an electronics engineer. And you may not be able to find an electronics engineer, right? So that could be a constraint with respect to people. So resources. In order to complete the project, you need a specific equipment or a characterization equipment, okay, which may not be available with you. Okay, that becomes the constraint. Okay, where you're going to find that is a different thing. But at this point, you just have to indicate what is the constraint that you have. Okay, like that, it should be with respect to time, money, people, resources. All those constraints should be listed under that section. So next is assumptions. So sometimes you will end up making few assumptions in order to do the planning of the project or in order to carry out the project. So what are those assumptions? Okay, the assumption could be you are going to carry out the project in RV College of Engineering. The space required for that project will be provided by RV College of Engineering. Okay, so that could be an assumption. It is just an example. Okay, like that. So what are the assumptions? And there could be some missing information. How are you going to compensate for that? You will end up making an assumption. So that should be clearly mentioned under this section. So next is reporting. Okay, at every stage of the project, so reporting becomes very important. Let's take the internship itself. So you decided to do this internship for 4 weeks. So you may have to submit a progress report at the end of every week. Okay, what is that you did in that week? So what is that you learned? Okay, some kind of reporting of progress should be there, and you should clearly define the format in which you are going to do that reporting, right? And so timeline is very important. So how much time do I have? So what are the tasks that I need to do in order to achieve the objective? So say suppose I have 2 objectives to be achieved. I have 1 month time. So how much time do I need to achieve objective 1? What are the tasks that I need to carry out in order to complete that objective 1? So task that I need to do to complete objective 2. How much time is required for task 1? So how much time is required for task 4? Like that, that is the timeline. Okay. So in the beginning itself, before you start the project itself, these are the points that you need to pay attention to. Okay. Without knowing what you are going to do, how you are going to do, so how much time do you have? So how much time are you going to allocate for each of the tasks? If you proceed, it does not make any sense. You cannot proceed actually, frankly speaking. At some point of time, you just get stuck. Right. So all these things come under reporting. And also you need to specify to whom you are going to report. Okay, these things become very important in a company. So finally, D of postcard stands for deliverables. So what is that you are going to deliver at the end of the project? Okay, is it just a 10-page report, or is it a prototype, or is it a product, or is it a process? Okay, so these become the deliverables. So at the beginning of the project itself, you need to clearly know what you are supposed to deliver. So what are your key deliverables and their format? right? So these are the things which you need to know in any project for that matter. So as I told you earlier, it doesn't matter which branch you belong to, which project you are going to do, where you are going to do. If you can provide this information, so then the rate of success is high. Okay, the probability of succeeding in a project is high. So imagine these are the details or information that you need to collect before starting any project. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So is it too fast or too slow? Or is the pace with which we are going, is it okay?
Sir, pace is okay, sir.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is about defining a project, right? And so depending upon the project, so the importance that you give to all of these steps might vary. Okay. When you start, so you might be completely blank. So you may not be able to find answers to many of these. So that is perfectly normal. So nothing to worry. More the time you spend, the better it is going to be. But at the same time, you cannot take 1 month just to write a postcard, right? So, and also at the same time, if you just spend 10 minutes and if you can't find anything, you cannot back out saying, okay, I spent 10 minutes on this, enough. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I did not find anything. I'm going to report the same. No, that is also not acceptable, right? So both the extremes are not good. So you have to find a balance. And if you do not deliver an assigned task, so they say you are inefficient, right? So struggle is important. There is struggle. At the same time, you need to deliver and there should be quality as well. And that should happen within the given specified time. So if you understand all these things, then only you will become a successful engineer. And this is common for everyone. So there is no exception, right? Anybody and everybody will end up doing this. And how systematically you do this, how sincerely you do this will make the difference. Okay, so the next part is planning. So when it comes to planning, so part of it I already addressed, but these are certain things which you need to keep in mind while doing the planning. So most of the projects are time bound. So you clearly find out, so what are the time limits? You clearly find out what is the priority that you need to give to a certain project. So you're working on a project. So immediately in between, a new assignment will be there. So then you need to choose. So what's the priority? Which one, whether the newly assigned task is more important than the one that you are currently doing, or the other way around. Accordingly, you are going to allocate your time. Okay. So next is flexible. You have to be flexible, right? And your plan need to be flexible. So say you planned that this project has 2 objectives, has 6 tasks in total to achieve these 2 objectives. So 4 tasks are related to the objective 1, 2 tasks are related to objective 2. And I have 1 month for this. So I need 3 weeks to complete first objective, 2 weeks to complete, sorry, 1 week to complete the second objective. However, after 15 days, there is a new project. Okay. And it turns out that the priority is high. So you need to accommodate that in between. So what are the tasks you can pause and allocate that time to this new activity? And this is common for everyone, right? That is how your life is going to be in future. So that is the flexibility. You cannot say, no, I'm working on this project A. I cannot accommodate project B. You cannot be that rigid, right? You have to be flexible. Then, so in the beginning, you always start a project with a plan. However, after certain time, you realize that whatever you thought is not available. So what is the plan B? what is the alternative? So you are using an equipment for your project which is available in your own college. It broke down, okay, which was not expected. Okay, some issue, and it takes at least 2 weeks to fix that device. So what is the plan B? Is any such equipment available in any other institution? Can I go and do the project there, or can I get it done through my friends who are there? Okay, this could be a plan B, right? Or is it possible? So you need to get a characterization done. So it was there in your institute. Now it is occupied. So you thought you can use it, but someone else is using it, is not available for you at the required time. So can I get it done from outside? Okay, that could be an alternative. So like that way in planning, you should know, you should have a plan B as well. So you should have an alternative as well. And define the roles of each and every member. So when you are in a team, you cannot blame that person A did not do this task, it was his task. So I am doing my task. So as a team, are you able to complete the work is more important. So sometimes you may end up doing the task of person A. At another time, your task, you might be genuinely busy with some other work, or it is not, you are sick, you are not possible to do. So at that time, person A will do your work. So ultimately, it's the whole team that is responsible, right? You cannot keep blaming on each other. Okay, my part is done, he is not doing anything, so I cannot do his work. Of course, you need to convince him. So you need to get the job done as a team from the other people as well, right? That is also very important. How efficient are you while doing a project in a team? So are you a good team player? That is very important. At the same time, you have to be independent. There are many things that you need to do on your own. So the whatever task that is assigned to you, it is you who are supposed to complete that, right? So you cannot leave it to others. So both are required. So that is under define the roles of each member, and whatever you do it as a team. And in some cases, you may end up acquiring new skills. Say you have a project on AI and ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. And because of your background, that might be completely new to you. So, however, that is a requirement in the project. So you will end up learning that. So how much time do I need in order to acquire that new skill? Do I have that time? So is it good to have a person with that background in the team, or can we afford it, or should I learn it myself? So how much time do I need for that? How much extra work do I need to do for that? So that also should come in the planning. And be practical. So don't be over enthusiastic. So you can say, okay, I will do 5 projects at a time, but be realistic, be practical. Are you able to really manage those 5 projects? Okay, so that also is very important. And taking that as an example, don't say, see, I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm working on a project. You are assigning me a new task, so I can't do this. No, you can't say it that way. Both are required. See, you should be flexible. At the same time, you have to be realistic and practical as well. Okay, and the plan, whatever you are going to make, it should be feasible, and you should clearly indicate the breakdown of the work and methodology. How are you going to carry out a task? So in the beginning, you know what the project is, then you define the objectives for that project, then you identify the tasks that you need to do to complete that objective, to achieve that objective. Now, how are you going to do that task is the methodology, right? So these are certain aspects which you need to pay attention to while planning the project. So that is the second phase of the project. Any questions here? So we are talking about project management, which consists of 4 stages or phases. The first one is defining the project. So we discussed about Bose card when it comes to defining. So now we are in the planning stage. So we just discussed about the points that you need to pay attention to while planning for a project. Any questions? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. So if no more questions, so let's go to the third phase. So this is execution of the project, execute or deliver, right? So you should always have control over the project through regular reviews. Okay, so you did an excellent planning. So your Bose card is very good, and you tried to accommodate everything in your planning. You started doing. Okay, so if the project is for 6 months, so you cannot just keep on doing the project, and after 5 months you just look back and say whether whatever you planned, are you going according to that plan. So that is something which you cannot do after 5 months, right? So regularly, at regular intervals, you should review the project. So what was planned? So am I going according to that plan? So what is the deviation? What is the reason for the deviation? So you should, if there is a deviation, you should come back and try to go according to the plan that you planned initially. Okay, so having control over the project through regular reviews is very important. Clearly mark the milestones and the deliverables. So at the end of the project, so you need to attain 2 objectives. But in order to do that, so you cannot just say, I will verify whether I have achieved the objective or not only at the end of the project. No. So in order to achieve objective 1, as we discussed earlier as an example, so you need to do 4 tasks. So as soon as task 1 is completed, so you just mark that as a milestone. Okay. So and cross check. So I was supposed to carry out task 1 within 1 week. So did I complete that in 1 week? You might complete it 2 days earlier itself, or you may take 2 days more than that. So what is its impact? If I finish 2 days earlier, so there could be a task which you plan to complete in 7 days, but it might require 9 days. So whatever 2 days that you got here after completion of first week, that you should accommodate for the other task, right? So likewise, so you planned to carry out complete a task in 1 week, but it took 9 days. So where do you get those 2 extra days from? So if you do not realize that you have consumed 2 days more than what you had planned, so the other tasks will get affected. So keeping that in mind, you have to speed up a little bit, okay, and complete other tasks so that the entire project is completed on time. So for that, you need to clearly define what is the milestone. So task 1 is a milestone, task 3 is a milestone, task 5 is a milestone. So at that point, you cross check and verify whether you have achieved. So how far are you, or how close are you to the objective or goal? So introspect and cross check the progress to avoid deviations. So at every milestone, you should cross check whether you are deviating or still you are going according to your plan. Okay, so what has been done and what should have been done. So how long has it been and how long should it have been? So it is a comparison with respect to your plan that you made initially, right? So and what were the expenses that you have incurred and what were the expenses that you had planned earlier? So at every point of time, you need to cross check these. And there are possibilities that something bad might happen. So you broke an equipment, or you're using a glassware, you broke it. It is just a simple example. So you need not be afraid. Okay, report that bad immediately. Okay, So the consequence is going to be the same, right? So if it is a very serious issue, and if whatever you need to face because of that, you need to face, you will end up facing that. But especially in such situations, don't delay it. Okay, bring it to the notice of the concerned as early as possible, so that there is no further delay or impact or adverse effect of that on the rest of the project and other members of the group. Okay, this is also very important. So nothing to worry. To err is a human. Everyone does mistakes, but admit that immediately. So there is already a mistake, and if you do one more mistake of delaying it or not conveying it, that will lead to some serious consequence. Okay, so don't do that. This is also very important. So finally, evaluation. So regularly review the tools and techniques that you used. That means, so you check the methodology that you had planned for, and if there is any change that you need to keep track of. And at the end of the project, in order to say that the project is completed, you should evaluate the deliverables. So what were the deliverables that you initially planned to, and what is that you have now? Is it acceptable? So, and you should also have a risk management plan, meaning, so if it is not up to the mark, so you cannot say that after completing a project 6 months that, okay, my deliverable is not up to the mark, so what should I do now? So that indication you will have in the very beginning itself. If you have regular reviews, if you realize that it is deviating, so if you try to correct it at that point itself, so you will not end up with a bigger consequence at the end. Okay, and the entire learning is important. So what happened in the entire process of the project? So what were the alternatives that you had planned, and what were the alternatives you ended up using, even though you did not have that in the plan? So this learning is important. So based on that, so you can define the risk, you can manage the risk in the next project. So that is what you do during the evaluation stage of a project. And the deviation with respect to duration, cost, resources, all those things should be clearly indicated. Okay, these are the key learnings from any project. Of course, anybody will do project. If you do not evaluate at the end of the project what was planned, what did you do, what went wrong, and what were the measures that you took. So that is very important. Introspection at the end of the project and clearly documenting it is important. And so what is the key takeaway from this entire project? So that is very important. So this is how you evaluate a project at the end of the project. So the last phase of the project. So this is about project planning and management. So at the beginning, when you listen to all these things, it might be overwhelming, but this is part of your life. So you need to get used to these things, use of terminologies, use of the tools, acquiring the required skills and knowledge. Yes, there is no excuse for that, right? Your entire life, you will end up learning. Okay, lifelong learning should be there. You cannot say, I have spent 14 to 18 years on my education, enough of it. I'm not going to learn anything new. So it doesn't work that way. So the environment is dynamic. So the changes are very fast. So you should get adapted to the new environment. For that purpose, you will end up learning every moment of your life, right? So you should be ready to do that, right? So lifelong learning is inevitable for anyone and everyone. Okay, this is about the project planning and management. Any questions? So now the task for you is, just based on your understanding of the topic that is assigned to you, So you just try to find some information on the Bose card, right? So today and tomorrow I will plan few sessions related to the projects or topics that you have selected. So during the discussion, you can get your doubts cleared, but I want you to come up with a Bose card for your team by Wednesday, right? So don't worry. For Bose card, you cannot take ages, as I told you, but at the same time, it is new. But once you start positively thinking about that, you can do it. Okay. So I'm going to provide details about the projects today and tomorrow. Based on that, you just spend some time. So there, the individual contribution is also important. The collective contribution is also important. You should learn to work in a team as well. So these are certain things that you need to start practicing now itself. You cannot say, once I start working in the company, let me try those things there. So why are you bothering me now? No, if you do not practice it now, you cannot do it there as well. Okay, so whatever you realize that you need to learn, that is something new, do it immediately. Don't postpone it. Okay, so this is about the project planning and management. So shall we go to the next topic?
Sir, can we do postcard analysis on any topic that we like?
You have decided to, of course, yeah. See, in general, you can do it on any project, right? So if you want to call it as a project, so that is applicable to anything and everything. Okay, that's what I was telling you from the beginning. Irrespective of the discipline, it is applicable to all the topics, all the projects. However, now you have selected a topic, or I have assigned you a topic in this internship. So I tell you what is the reason for the reshuffling and making a team, and I will explain you about the project in brief. Based on that, you prepare a postcard for that topic. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. So the next two topics, one is the importance of figure, and very briefly on the editor's view on publishing a review book. Right. So shall we go to the next topic?
Yes, sir.
Good. So now, why is this important? So it doesn't matter whether it is, as I told you earlier, whether it is an assignment or an experiential learning or a course that you're taking, a project, or your job in future. You definitely will end up using figures. So when it comes to these figures, so it could be a graph or an illustration or other types which we are going to discuss. Okay, so it is important for an engineer, and it is required in almost all phases of your life, right? Especially when it comes to technical writing. So whether it is a research paper or a review paper or your project report. So these are certain things which you need to pay attention to with respect to the figures, right? So now whatever I'm going to discuss is based on the webinar of three editors of renowned journals, right? So Tom, Stacy, and Matt. So these three people had given a webinar on importance of figures in technical writing. So I would like to acknowledge them, and that is the reference. So from now onwards, whatever I'm going to discuss is based on their webinar. So now, so what is the purpose of scientific figures? So it could be designed to illustrate few tasks or procedures that are followed, or it could be an introduction, or you want to emphasize the ideas which are difficult to explain via text. So whichever you think that it is difficult to explain through words or text, you will end up showing a picture or a diagram. Okay, and we know a picture speaks 1,000 words. Like that. So it is very important. You cannot have a project or a presentation without figure. It is very unusual. Okay, conveying information without pictures is very unusual. Okay, so that is the purpose you end up using pictures, graphs in your report or technical document. And usually graphs are better than tables, right? So the information which you would like to convey in the form of table, so visually it conveys more information when you do it using graphs. Okay, so the understanding is better, visualization is better, and you can convey the message clearly and better than a table, right? So let's look at an example. So here there are three parameters, A, B, and C, and studies are done for 4 different durations. So that is 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hours, and 12 hours. Okay, so there are certain results that are obtained. So of course, whatever information you want to convey is conveyed in the table that you are able to see here, right? So if you consider, or if you want to see what is the impact of A, B, and C, or what is the effect of A, B, and C after 2 hours, okay? So the result is 2.2 in case of A, 4.5 in case of B, 1.5 in case of C. That means to compare, the performance of B is better. However, the same thing, instead of table, if you try to convey it using a graph, so here a bar graph is used. Okay, so B is better. The moment you look at the picture, so you can clearly make out, okay, B is better than A and C. And this is just an example, just used for the purpose of illustration, and references are also given about where the data is taken from. Okay, so what we are trying to convey here, it's a comparison between a bar graph and a table. So whatever information that is already conveyed in the form of a table, it is better visualized if you represent the same thing in the form of a graph. Okay, so next example. So here the entire table, the data, whatever is represented in the form of table, is depicted in the form of a graph, right? So again, if you want to see the impact of or effect of A, B, and C with respect to all the durations, how does it work? Is it increasing with time? So is there a peak value? It reaches a peak value and comes down, or is it continuously decreasing with time? So all those things can be better visualized in the form of a graph. So here it is a line graph. Wherever possible, if you use a scatter plot, and if you indicate the points at which the measurement is done, so that is better. So when we are talking about making use of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, I can show you these different graphs. So how can it be better visualized if you change the type of a graph and so on? We shall discuss that. But this is, so here what you need to understand is, if you use a graph instead of the table, the visualization is much better, right? Okay, next, if you remember, I told you that uh, while going through the literature, the papers that we refer to, everyone is very busy in spite of their busy schedule, so new tasks are assigned. So no, people might not have patience to go through the research article in the way it is written, in the chronological order, right? That may not be possible. Okay, so you start with abstract, you read the introduction, then you go to results and discussion, then conclusion. No. So it is unlikely that everyone does it. So what people usually do is, so they read the title, then they read the abstract. So once the abstract is done, so I suggest to go to conclusion just to see whether they have met whatever they defined. So are their goals met? Are their objectives fulfilled? So some people have the tendency to directly go to pictures, right? So they go to results and discussion. They want to see the pictures. So at this point of time, if your picture does not really convey the information it is supposed to convey, so it is not very effective. So what is that? There is a picture and there will be an explanation, the captioning for that, right? So the picture along with the caption should be a standalone entity, right? If you just look at the picture and if you just read the caption that is given, so it should be self-explanatory. You should not end up referring to the information that is provided in the report to understand the picture. Okay, that is what uh, they are trying to convey through this slide or pictures, right? So a picture should be standalone along with the caption. Okay, so looking at this picture, so what is your impression? So too much of information is stuffed in this picture. It's a plot where there's a lot of information, you're not able to make out anything, right? So that speaks about information density. So thinking that I need to provide as much information as possible just within one picture, if you just come up with such pictures, it's of very little value. Okay, so do not stuff information unnecessarily. That speaks about information density. So next is you may end up using a schematic representation or an illustration to demonstrate the flow of information or the steps that you have carried out. So you want to give a visualization for that. So you might be using a schematic representation for that purpose. So here, so you can see it starts from the middle. So it takes two directions. So the arrows indicates the flow of information in both the directions, and it speaks about the flow of information, right? So this is acceptable. So you just try to make the picture as innovative as possible and try to convey the information that you want to convey in a better way. And you should also make sure that the scientific rigor that is required is there in the picture. So what are the important things here? There are dotted lines, so there are vertical lines, there is a color bar, and there are circles with different colors. Okay, and there is some text indicated in the graph. The axis is labeled, so units are given. So all the required information should be made available in the pictures or graphs that you want to show. Okay, there is lot of information in just in this one graph, but at the same time looking at that, so you don't feel that okay, this is clumsy, right? If you just try to extract information from it, it is possible to read. Okay, so that is important, that scientific rigor should be there. So aesthetics. So again, this is another graph where or another picture where lot of information is there, right? So it could be the result of many experiments that are carried out. They are trying to convey just using one picture, right? So they have used color coding. There is a text. So whatever the legend that they have used is big and clear. So there is a color bar. So these are certain things which gives aesthetics. So you should pay attention to that as well. Next is the captioning, right? So as I told you, whatever the caption that you provide for a picture, so that should make that picture a standalone entity in your report. So if someone just reads that caption and looks at have a look at the figure, they should be able to clearly make out. So as I told you, they should not go back, they should not end up referring to the text in the report in order to understand that representation picture, right? So that is the purpose of caption. So that doesn't mean you can give 3 or 4 paragraphs of captioning, no. And at the same time, it should not be just as short as one sentence which doesn't really convey anything. Okay, both extremes are not acceptable. Now you might have heard of the legend as well. So there could be a legend. Give me a minute. Sir, the session is still going on, sir. Sir, 11:00ವರೆಗೂ ಇದೆ ಸರ್ ಸೆಷನ್. ಹಲೋ ಮಂಜು, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about legend. So usually, say, let's go back. Okay, this is the best example to speak about legend. So here, the red curve, there is an explanation besides the red curve which says gene B. Okay, so black curve gene C and blue curve gene A. So whatever the gene A, B, C is an example of legend. Okay, so the legend is used to give better clarity or give additional information about that picture. Okay, now, so what is the difference between the legend and caption? The information that whatever you want to convey through a legend can be conveyed through a caption as well. Okay, instead of giving a legend, so you can include that information in the caption. Okay, however, whatever information you want to give in the caption, that all that information may not be able to convey in the legend, may not be able to convey through the legend. However, whatever you want to convey through the legend can be conveyed through a caption. Okay, so that is the difference between a legend and a caption. So captioning of each picture is very important. And in your reports, we always end up using a picture that is already made by someone else. You just look at a picture in a textbook or in an article, you find that it is good, so you just copy that and paste it. It is allowed. You have to, in order to do that, especially in a research article or a review article, so you have to take permission for that. Okay, there is a process, a defined process for that. So, and that is available in every journal. So through that process, you should get the copyright permission from the author who originally published that picture. However, in thesis, you don't really do that, but it is advised to do that when you insert pictures in thesis as well. At least the last option is you mention, give the reference to that picture. Okay, ideally speaking, just giving the reference and not taking the permission is not allowed. However, so not even giving reference is definitely not allowed, right? So take the permission. So that is the reason why you might get to see under the caption of a picture that so reprinted with permission from. Okay, so in scientific journals and textbooks, they clearly mention that the permission is taken for reprinting that picture from the original author. Okay, so we have to do that. So these are professional ethics that need to be followed. Okay, this is about the captioning. So next is types of figures that we end up adding in technical reports. So one could be illustrative. So here you just try to say that, okay, this is what we are going to do. This is the method or methodology that is followed. This is the flow of information. So this is our plan. So that is what we are going to demonstrate through illustrative figures. So next is when it comes to characterization. So you have synthesized some material. So you want to show the characterization. It could be some images or XRD or something else. So those things you show under characterization. So that is a category where you show what you have made. So this is what we made. Okay. So that is one category of pictures that you use in scientific writing. The third one is applications. So whatever you prepared, so what is it used for? So how does it work? So that information you are going to convey through a third set of category of figures. So application, that could be graphs as well. Okay, so these are the types of pictures that you end up using in scientific writing. So this is about the importance of pictures and how you are going to do that. So what is the takeaway from this section? So you end up using graphs, plots, and pictures in your reports. So graphs are always better than tables. And if you end up taking pictures from other publications or textbooks, it is necessary to get the permission from the author of that picture. So professional ethics need to be followed, and it is always advised to come up with your own schematic representation, right? So whatever information you need to convey, say suppose you're in the literature section of your report, you will end up showing a picture which is published in an article. So you may end up taking information or data from different articles and plot your own graph. So that is the novelty in your literature review section or review paper, right? You're trying to convey the information which is already published by other authors. However, so you're taking the data with their permission and you're coming up with your own analysis. Okay, so your own picture where you club all the data and give a new perspective to that information. Okay, that is innovative. So that is actually expected or required. So this is the takeaway from this section of the presentation. So any questions? When we go to the next section. At any point of time, if you have any questions, kindly make note of it. You can post it in the chat, or if you need not hesitate. You can ask me those questions at a later time as well. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Sir, can you repeat legend versus caption?
Okay. See, legend, whatever information you would like to convey through the legend, the same thing can be conveyed in the caption as well. However, all the information that you would like to convey through the caption is not possible to do with legend alone. Say you have a line graph where there are 3 or 4 lines of different colors in your graph. So you will end up indicating what is the red line showing. So what does blue line indicate? So green line. So what does it represent? So that is the legend. Okay. So in the example that I showed you here, so the red colored line is gene B, is the legend. So black colored line is gene C, that's the legend. Okay, so blue colored line is gene A, that's the legend. But coming to the caption, It is the description that is given below a picture. Okay, so what is the information that picture is conveying? That is the caption. Is that clear?
Sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So if no more questions, let's go to the next section. So that is review paper. So now I would like to repeat that whatever we discussed last week is about drafting the literature review part in your thesis or the experimental paper, right? So now whatever we're going to discuss is drafting a standalone review article, review paper, of course. So the information is there is an overlap, but now today what I'm going to speak is, so from the editor's viewpoint, so what are their expectations when you end up publishing a review article, right? So a review article in general should be organized. So it should be an evaluation of the work that is already published, and so it should distill information for you, right? So it's like an extract, and in some cases it is an entry point for the students. Okay, so this becomes the first step in few cases where the novice researcher will start working on it, and it is also an entry point for the policymakers. So they just look at the reviews and try to make the policies, and these reviews should be in a position to bridge the gap between fields. So nanomaterial synthesis and characterization, so if you feel that it is part of a chemist or chemistry, then you want to use those nanomaterials in civil engineering. So you are trying to bridge the gap between two disciplines, chemistry and civil engineering, or chemistry and electronics. Okay, so that should be done through a review article. That becomes the purpose of a review article. So that review article should give a direction and shape to future research. Okay, so when you draft a review article or publish a review article, so it should clearly convey, or it should give a direction to the person who is reading that article, and it should speak about the future research that you need to carry out. Okay, this is what the editors say. Okay, again, this is taken from the webinar of Tom, Stacy, and Matt. And again, what could be the reasons for writing a review paper? So somewhat okay reasons or not so good reasons are, you want to learn something new about a new field. So you might feel that, okay, if I start writing a review paper, I will get to know more about that field. So before starting the thesis paper, yes, okay, that is a reason, but not a very great reason to write a review paper, but it is okay, acceptable. And you might be feeling that, okay, if I just write a review article that adds to my CV, fine, that is also fine. But again, that should not be the only reason for writing a review paper, but it is acceptable, not an issue. So what could be the practical reasons? Usually what these editors say is, once you gain expertise in a specific field, so if you write a review article after gaining the expertise, your view, your perspective, your opinion will matter a lot. Okay, so that adds value to the review paper. The next is, on an average, reviews are cited and downloaded more than primary research articles. You have published a work in your published your research on a topic, so the number of citations you get for that work might be comparatively less. So why these citations? What does it speak? If more number of people refer to your work, if there are more number of citations, so that means your work is valuable. That speaks about the quality of the work and novelty of the work. Okay, so that citations are more for review articles. So those are some of the practical reasons why people end up writing review articles. So as a scientist, if you have more number of citations for your work, so that means you are a good researcher in general. Okay, however, you will end up publishing, filing patents and publishing patents. So there is no concept of citation in case of patents. So your quality is not reflected there. So it doesn't matter, but in general. So with respect to publications, that is the perception. And it is an opportunity to think deeply about the state of your subfield. So through review paper, so you just try to gain a deeper insight. And these are some of the practical reasons. And some good reasons are, so you are just trying to distill the information and give the gist of many research articles. So that could be a valid reason to write a research article, and it could be an entry point for the novice researchers. And you are trying to bridge the gap through the review article. Fair enough. These are some good reasons. And a great reason for writing a review article could be, so you can provide an insight that cannot be directly obtained from reading the primary empirical research literature. That means you went through 10 papers. So whatever information you get or understand just by reading those papers, so if you provide more information than that by giving an overall perspective of all those 10 papers through your review paper, that's a great reason to write a review paper. So if a person can get more information than actually reading just that original article by reading your research review paper, so that serves the purpose of your review paper. That's a very good reason to write a review paper. So these are the opinion or expectations of the editors of journals, right? And so you should always pay attention to these things while writing a review article. So what is the purpose of this? So where are you going to fit this? So why does this matter? Why this review is important? And why is it important to write that review now? Okay, so how critical is it? Why is it, how is that going to help the scientific community if you write that review now is more important. And what is the tone? How are you going to present that content? And to whom are you going to present it, right? So, and how is it compared with or positioned distinctly from other reviews? So, is it unique? So, is it conveying additional information, more information? Is it giving a better understanding? So, these are some of the things which you need to pay attention to while deciding the contents of your review paper. Okay, coming to the organization, how we are going to organize the information. So you start with an outline, then it is ideal to have around 4 to 6 sections in it. So do not have too many sections, and also 2 or 3 subsections under each section is decent. So don't make it too many subsections under one section and just one subsection under another section. You just try to segregate the information, present it in such a way that it is balanced. Okay, and do not have subsections in introduction and conclusion, right? And use parallel structure. So that means whatever the flow or structure you give for one section, so try to follow the same structure for the other sections as well, wherever possible. And the last point is, yes, don't have too many subsections under one and just one subsection in the another section. Okay, so some remarks on organization. And so it should not be just collection of results, and readers should learn something they couldn't get just by reading the references, right? This should be the purpose. So it should be critique, comparison, or assessment, or the ideas which that are hidden, so that you are trying to bring out through your review paper. It will be great. Okay, and also when it comes to the conclusion part, so whatever you would like to convey that your conclusion, so that should be made explicit. Okay, so if you have a paragraph of information and just the last line speaks about the most important stuff of your conclusion, so if it is just buried inside that conclusion paragraph, that is not good enough. Try to bring out that salient feature in the beginning itself. So these are some of the expectations of the editors or remarks about review paper, and this is it for today. So it's one long discussion of 1.5 hours, one side interaction. There's no interaction at all, one way speaking. So might be overwhelming for few, but if you were able to follow and if you were able to make note of these things, it is going to be very useful for you in all phases of your life. So make use of this information. Any questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I just organize few sessions on the topics for the topic specific discussions. So today and tomorrow, and try to come up with the postcard for your topic. So if no more questions, thanks a lot for your attention. And again, we shall meet tomorrow morning with another general session. And that is going to be the last session, last general session. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.